The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone to today's Hacking and Securing Smart Cities webinar, hosted by Cesar Cerrudo, who's the CTO for IOActive Labs. Just before we get started, I wanted to let you know that throughout the presentation, everyone will be on mute. However, at the end, we will be doing a Q&A session, and we have a little question section there, so please feel free to put your questions in there, and we'll answer them at the end. On top of that, we will also be hosting a Q&A after that on Twitter using the Ask IOActive hashtag. Alternatively, if you don't feel like asking a question on this forum, you are more than welcome to email us at info@ioactive.com. But for now, I think it's time for us to listen to what Cesar has to say. So Cesar, over to you.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks everyone for joining. So this webinar is about hacking and securing smart cities. This is the result of a research I have been doing for the last couple of years. I recently published a paper that we probably will email you later that covers all this in really deep detail. So on the last couple of years, myself at IOActive Labs, we have been researching a lot of different technology and finding a lot of vulnerabilities there, reporting them to CERT and to the vendors, dealing with all that. At the same time, seeing all the problems related with just how is to find something and get it fixed, the communication problems between government entities or corporations. And like I said, we have been doing this for the last couple of years, specifically with ICS, SCADA technologies, Internet of Things devices, embedded system in general. So what we are going to talk about today is really applied to cities in general around the world. But this is not a specific technology issue. It's more like a global issue affecting different technologies.
Cesar, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I'm not sure if you're changing screen, but nothing's changed just yet.
No.
Maybe you've kept it on the screen. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just checking.
No problem. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will give you a quick overview about me because probably most people don't know about me. So I have been doing security for a long time, almost 10 years or more, mostly focused on offensive side. So I have developed some exploitation techniques on Windows, database, web applications. I have found many vulnerabilities. I have reported a lot of them directly to vendors and CERT organizations. One of my latest research was hacking traffic control systems. This also gives me an interesting overview of all the offensive part when dealing with information and security. At the same time, I have a lot of management experience working at CTO at IOActive Labs and also have my own software development company. So besides having a really good technical background, and also have these management skills that allow me to have an interesting point of view from an attacker side and also just a regular attacker, not just also about how attacks will work when dealing with complex things, how attack will be like when you need coordination, when you need different skill, when you need different capabilities. So just going into the presentation, I know how many of you have recently been in a blackout, but I have been in a blackout recently, and it's interesting to see what happens when there is no electricity. So here in my city, probably 1 month ago, there was a blackout. So the first minutes, you start to wonder, okay, this is probably 5 minutes, and then the electricity will return. But then after 10 minutes, after 20 minutes, you start to get worried. You start to, I don't know, call the company, the utility to see what's happening. People start to wonder what what this is about. And it was at night, so it was weird. People start to go out to the street to look around because it was a really big part of the city completely blackout. You start to see some emergency lights at buildings. Sometimes at some window you start to see the light of candles. You start to see people in the street. So what I want to highlight, when something like this happens, people change behavior. People won't behave the same way as usual because there is something really important in their daily life that is not working. In this case, electricity. Another example is when you are facing a traffic jam. I guess people that live on big city are used to be in traffic jam, maybe every day, maybe once in a while. But maybe if you have observed this situation, you will realize that people also change behavior because people start to get angry, start to complain, start to press the klaxon and start to yell at people next to them and start to act differently. So you change your mood. It affects you individually, and it also affects all people in the group that is affected by the same situation. So here we are also dealing with some situation that when, in this case, a traffic jam being for any different reason, affect the way you behave. Another thing is when, right now, if you regularly read the news, you will find out a lot of things related with cybersecurity, a lot of different threats, a lot of different problems. So if you are not a really technical people, you don't know if those problems are real or not, or maybe there is a hype by the press. And right now, because all this new technology coming out every day, or new changes happening so fast, something that was impossible or really difficult to do maybe a few years ago, now is becoming possible. So there are threats that maybe people think, no, that's not possible, that's really difficult, but now it's becoming possible. Also, if you think about Stuxnet, then you realize that we are facing different things now. I mean, attacks are getting more complex and more advanced. So what's a smart city? I mean, if you look around definition, you will have many definitions depending where you look for. But I just come out with a very basic definition to be all in the same page, understand what's smart city. So a very simple one is a city that uses technology to automate and improve city services, making citizens' life better. So basically, it's just technology being used to provide better services to the citizens. This is currently there is a lot of buzz around smart cities, and there are some reports that are saying that by 2020 there will be more than 1 trillion potential market for this, on all related with smart cities, mostly technology. There are other reports that talk about on the 100 billions, but almost all agree that we are talking about a really big amount of money potential market for the next coming years. So how a city becomes smart? What technology is being deployed or how it's being used? So we have smart technology for traffic control. So this technology basically helps to detect in real life the traffic in a highway, in a street, at an intersection. So it will use this information to adapt the traffic signals, the ramp meter, etc. So instead of having fixed timing on the traffic lights or ramp meters, it will adapt based on real-time information provided by sensors, by radars, by cameras, etc. Then you have smart parking. Smart parking is very interesting and useful because you have sensors that will detect if a car is parked or not. So you can use a mobile app, and before going to some place, you can check if there is parking space available, and also it will tell you the price based on time of the day, availability, etc. Street lighting. Have new system for making street lighting smarter. So you have LED lights with sensors and wireless communication modules that they are all interconnected and can be centrally managed from some location. This allows to set a specific timing when the lights will turn on and off. It could adapt to weather conditions, so it's dark because it's cloudy, it will stay turned on for more time, etc. So basically, this is smart city system that allows to provide better street lighting. Then for public transportation, you have from real-time information about arrivals and departures from trains, buses, subway, etc. Also, you have a different way of payment with cards. You can just swipe your card or even your cell phone and pay and go. Then for energy, water, and waste management, we have a smart system. For energy, already been there for some time. The smart grid with the smart meters, we have this smart network that can adapt to the needs of houses and buildings and companies, and demand electricity based on time of the day and pricing. You can say, okay, I want my washing machine to start working when the price is down, so I will save money, etc. Then for water management, you have smart pipes that can detect leakage and report it, can detect the quality of water, if it is good or not, etc. And finally, you have waste management, that is some technology, for instance, that will allow you to pick up the garbage when a container is full. You have sensors in the container that will tell you, okay, there is enough garbage to pick it up, so the garbage collector will pick it just when it's full or is smelling. Then for security, you have surveillance camera that can also be traffic cameras. You have a gunshot detection that can interpret the noise with a sensor and alert if it is a gunshot to police. You have all these systems are interconnected. Some of them are wireless, some of them not. Then in general, most cities will have management system for everyday task. In a city, you have many different departments, you have many different procedures and tasks. So all this is becoming automated. So you have a system for managing taxes, a system for managing salaries of people, a system for managing maintenance of the city, etc. Hundreds of systems on every city. Then you have machine-to-machine communication, because I mean all of this technology I am talking about, they depend on other technology. In this case, machine-to-machine allow to different devices, machine to communicate to each other and to take decisions, actions based on the information they get. And you have sensors for everything. Sensors are the kind of core part of a city because they will detect weather conditions, they will detect pollution, they can detect a small flood, some can detect earthquake, breakage on bridges and tunnels, etc. So sensors are constantly gathering information in real time and send it back to the system, to the different systems. So they are really a core part of a city. Then with all this, we have open data, which is basically the government opening up the data they get from their system, from their systems, and from the citizens, and sharing it with the public. Sometimes this is real-time data, sometimes it's data that is delayed by a few minutes, by a few hours, or by a few days. It depends. But the important part is that data that is being collected by the government is being shared with everyone. And then finally, we have what it could be like the interface between the city, the systems, the technology, and the end user, the citizen. We have mobile apps, so we have apps that will help you to get information about transportation, departure and arrival, delays, weather, alerts, parking, like I already said, etc. You have mobile app almost for everything. So all this technology is really useful and is really trying to make things easier for the city and also for the citizen. But as you know, with every new technology, you have a lot of challenges and a lot of problems. So I have identified many problems that I'm going to describe now, and they are affecting, like I said early in the presentation, not a specific technology, but they are like a core problem in different technology. So one of the main problems is that new technologies, being software, devices, embedded software, etc., is being deployed in cities around the world without any security testing at all. So the government will purchase the technology and implement it without any security testing. There is a lot of testing for functionality, but there is no security testing at all, at least on what I have seen. So basically, the governments are trusting the vendors the security of their infrastructure. So if the vendors say, okay, this is secure, this has strong encryption, basically governments say, okay, that's good, we're going to purchase it and use it. But they never verify if that's true, or if it's really working as promoted. So one of the big challenges is the ease of use and quick deployment with the security, because if you want encryption, then you have to deal with key management, and that is not very easy to implement in an easy use way. Most of this new technology that is being implemented is really insecure. There are a lot of vulnerabilities, different kinds of vulnerabilities. We see this all the times on different kinds of technology. And when we talk to vendors, because we report these vulnerabilities, we realize that they don't have almost no knowledge about security. It's like talking to a vice president of engineering and not knowing what are the threats, what are the protections they need. I mean, sometimes you can't believe that you're talking to someone that is in charge of developing some important products and they don't know basic concept about security. Another thing is that everything is wireless right now. I mean, every device that is being deployed is wireless. There are some wired devices, but are the less one. And by being wireless, it's easier to remotely access. And for an attacker, it's easier to attack remotely without physical access. So one of the main problems is that most vendors will implement their own custom protocol. Sometimes the protocols are based on standards, but they will modify it and adapt it to their needs and start using it. And also some vendors will implement their own encryption. When they do that, obviously it's really bad encryption. But some vendors will implement some known algorithm, strong algorithm, but they will do it in a really wrong way, because they fail to do key management properly. Sometimes they will distribute the keys with the device. They will share the same keys with all the device. They will distribute the private key with the firmware, or they will really do bad encryption that doesn't work. And sometimes when encryption could be good, the government or the companies that it's hired to implement the devices, they won't turn on the encryption because it's difficult, because it doesn't work, or they don't know how to do it. So sometimes you have encryption available, but it's turned off. And sometimes you have encryption available, turned on, but it's not really good encryption or not encryption at all. Another thing is, which I think is important, is there is no city search on cities. So right now, I have been dealing with search organization for many years, and I know how the process is to coordinate disclosure of vulnerability, to contact the vendor, etc., and to get also notify some internal organization. And I know it's a lot of work, and it's very difficult to do it. I mean, right now, the US CERT, the ICS CERT, CERT, CC, etc., they have people with a lot of experience doing that. But when we release some important research, we realize there is some lack of coordination, mostly with federal organization in the US. So we get called, I don't know, by the military or by the other organizations saying, okay, we need this information, and we always say, oh, but you should talk to CERT because we already give the information to CERT. So there you can see there is problems internally with communication. So if you translate that in a city, there is no CERT. There isn't any organization that can deal with coordination about vulnerabilities, about vendors fixing the security problems, about coordinating communication between different organizations in the government, dealing with security incidents, etc. So there is completely lack of any specific organization to deal with all this in a city. Another problem is that right now, because I don't know, I mean, imagine like a city is like a big corporation. I mean, a lot of systems, a lot of devices, very complex. So there is a really huge and always kind of unknown attack surface because they don't have enough resources, so they don't really know how the whole system works, all the system they have, how they interconnect with each other. So you have a very huge complexity system that are interdependent between them. So you don't really know if it's a problem with some system, how far that problem will propagate because chain reaction. So we are facing a really complex problem that creates a really huge attack surface. Another thing is patch deployment. So think about, in a company, you have a lot of problem when the patch is released. You have to update your production system. You have to have a procedure in place. You have to get the patches from the vendor and then schedule how to apply them, etc. So that's pretty complex. So imagine now in a city when you have critical infrastructure running, critical system and devices that in case a vulnerability is found, you need to get the vendor to quickly produce a fix and then patch the system. So this is a really big challenge because how do you do to properly test the fix? So, you know, after you apply it, it won't break everything and you will end up with some infrastructure in the city not working. So how do you do to get the patch on time so you don't have to live with a vulnerability in a system that you can stop because it's a critical system, so you need it working. So if there is a vulnerability there, you have to live with that. And sometimes you won't have a way to protect it until the patch is available. So you have to deal with that in some way. So there is a lot of different challenges being related with patch release and deployment. Not to mention that sometimes vendors that are providing technology to cities, they are not used to deal with a constant patch release cycle. They are not used to deal with security vulnerability reports, etc. So they, like I said before, they don't have this knowledge. Another thing is that we have a lot of legacy systems. So have a lot of legacy system and then new technology being deployed. So you have to find a way to communicate old system with new system, and this creates more problem because you have to put something in the middle so that communication can be translated or that both systems can coexist. So that creates more challenges. This is sometimes some people say, okay, it's a there is a lack of standard. So like I said, most vendors will implement their protocol, their framework, etc. So there is a lot of standard. So we say that's kind of good because there is a slow adoption of new technology. But I don't think it's good at all because new technology is being adopted anyway, but it is living with the old technology, which make everything vulnerable. So there's an interesting example here that I saw in a CNN report about Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world and one of the smartest buildings. And as you can see there, you have the elevator management system, and you have the access control system and the closed circuit television system. And all of them run on Windows XP, which is a really old operating system. It's not supported anymore, outdated, it's less secure than current operating system. So there you can see that right now, one of the most important buildings in the world is running their system on Windows XP. So imagine with the city infrastructure is not the same, but similar. Here is interesting to show how sometimes simple bugs can cause big problems. These are three different and interesting examples of this. First, we have that in 2012 in California, the Placer County system accidentally sent a notification to 1,200 people that they have to go on jury duty on some specific date and time. So that specific date and time, all these people went on the road to go on jury duty, and they caused a traffic jam. So here you can see that a really simple bug that alerted people about being on jury duty caused a traffic jam in a city. Then we have another example on 2013 in the Bay Area Rapid Transit. There was a software problem that caused that these trains were shut down, and they have almost 1,000 passengers on board, and they were shut down for, I think, 2 hours or so. I don't remember exactly. But here you can see that like a small bug, a software problem, is trapping people in trains for hours. And finally, we have the Northeast blackout of 2003, which was a huge blackout caused by a software bug in the alert system of a control room. Basically, this software bug didn't display the alert, so the engineers that were monitoring the system didn't see any alert. There was a problem there, but because of the bug, the alert wasn't being shown. So this affected almost 55 million people in Canada and in New York State, and it causes a lot of money losses. People died because, I don't know, they didn't have electricity, so people that were depending on that, some of them died, some of them died by killing because of insecurity in the streets. There was hundreds of flights canceled. There was saturation of landlines, of phones, or on cell phones. Too, I mean, there was a really mess because of a software bug there. So continuing with the different problems, one thing that is very easy to see is that because of government bureaucracy and at the same time the shortage of skilled people, I mean, in government there is a lot of skilled people, but there isn't enough people. So if you add this to the bureaucracy, you have a really really bad and slow movement when dealing with security issues. And when you have to deal with security, you can't be slow. I mean, you have to act fast. You have to have everything ready. You have to have plans. You have to have people. You need to be available. You need to provide answers. I mean, there is no place for bureaucracy for this. Another thing I have seen is that while you have plans for maybe earthquake, floods, natural disaster in general, currently there are no plans for cyber attacks on cities. So if in case a city is attacked, being no plan in place, people won't know how to react. I mean, regular people won't know how to react. People working at different government level won't know how to react. So it will be really a mess if just a simple attack or problem like the one we saw recently happens. I mean, people won't know what to do. And because the use of this technology in the same way that right now servers are being attacked with distributed denial of service attacks, the same way the city service could be attacked. So any service that city will have exposed could be suffering from a denial of service attack. And this could be really simple. Another thing is like when you do research, you need to have access to the technology in order to identify the threat, to identify the security problems, etc. But with this specific technology used by city, these system or devices are very difficult to get because they are expensive or because they are not being sold to individuals or to companies that are not government. So it becomes difficult to do research and identify the security problems. I'm like doing this presentation and tell you about all the problems. Sometimes people need to see to believe. So they need to see someone breaking the traffic control system, so someone breaking the power grid, someone breaking the surveillance camera. I mean, sometimes people need to see to believe. So it becomes difficult for researchers, for the security community, to let people know about all these problems and that people pay attention about it. So let's see now some possible attacks based on all these problems we just saw. So last year I did this research on the traffic control systems, and also independently the University of Michigan did a research on other technology used also for traffic control. So both technologies were vulnerable, allowing to manipulate traffic lights from meters, etc. It was proved last year. So in the case of University of Michigan, they found out that probably 100,000 intersections in the US and Canada could be affected by these issues. They found basically the wireless link between the traffic controls were not being encrypted at all. And you also found on the sensors used for traffic detection that they were not using encryption neither. So in my case, we are 200,000 sensors installed worldwide that were vulnerable and probably today are vulnerable. So therefore, that was for traffic control system. Now for street lighting, this system I described it at the beginning of this webinar. Some of them are wireless, so they suffer from the encryption problems I already described. And those that are wired also could be having some problems because it doesn't matter that you have a wired connection, then if it is using power line communication, then you could also easily access the power line and try to mess with the system. So in case you can attack a street lighting system, you could black out a big city area or a whole island, because right now in the US Virgin Island, they are using in one of the islands a system that is wireless and it is used for street lighting. So if that system is vulnerable, then an attacker will be able to black out the whole island streets. And you will end up with something like this. Then for city management system in general, it becomes easy for an attacker, in case of having access in some way, to manipulate information, any kind of information. For example, you could modify maps, you could modify some basic information that when processed will produce, for instance, working orders. So you have to solve one problem in a city. For instance, you have to send city worker to fix a street, to fix a sidewalk, etc. So you have to produce a working order detailing the problem and how to fix it, where, etc. And if you provide the wrong coordinate, for instance, they could end up digging a hole in a gas pipe or in a communication line like a fiber optic. This has happened in the past by mistake. For instance, on 2010, a gas pipeline exploded because workers installing electrical poles for electrical lines, they mistakenly dig in the wrong place. So this caused a really big explosion that sadly killed one worker and 6 of them were injured. So you can see here this was by mistake, but imagine if you can cause that mistake on purpose, being an attacker by manipulating information. So like I said, in a city, sensors are one of the core parts. So you have sensors everywhere, different kind of sensors. So for instance, as an attacker, you could fake a seismic detection because these sensors, most of them are wireless and they have all these encryption problems. So if you can hack them, then you can start sending fake data to the different systems. So in case of seismic detection, you can send fake data, so system will think there is some seismic activity and maybe will alert people, causing panic. The same with flu detection, the same with gunshot detection. So any kind of detection by the sensor can be faked, so the system will get that fake data and will take decisions based on the fake data. And those decisions could be really different kind of decisions. And because systems are interconnected with each other, you don't know how far the problem can propagate. So by faking some information from sensor, you can create a huge problem in a city. Then there is a not very nice part about public data, because I understand that public data being available is really useful, so developers and companies can create applications that becomes useful for the citizens, but at the same time, this public data is being available to attackers. So attackers can use this data to synchronize, to do really perfect attacks based on real-time data. For instance, they can know at what specific time a train, a bus is arriving or departing. They could know how many people is at some different place, how much traffic there is at some specific intersection of a street. So this allows attacker to have really useful information in order to schedule attacks, to use attack triggers for coordination, etc. And then on mobile apps are good too. They provide really useful information to citizens, but at the same time could be a very interesting target for attackers, because you can do attacks on the applications like man in the middle. I mean, they suffer from regular application problems. Or you could hack the developing companies and modify the application in some way and affect the end user. Or another attack point could be the data feed, because all this application depends on different data feeds that could come from sensors, that could come from other systems. So you can target the data feeds and affect the end user because the application will show wrong data. Then you have the city servers and the cloud infrastructure. So when thinking about cloud used by city, you have to be very careful because, with all this software as a service offering, you are trusting the vendor. And the same way your city is trusting, several other cities could be trusting. And this is very interesting for the attacker point of view, because if an attacker can compromise the cloud, then he will have instant access to many cities around the world and affecting the infrastructure. So main services to attack for an attacker will be this software as a service and deployed in the cloud. The same for distributed denial of service attacks. If you know that there is some service that is being provided online that some city is using, as an attacker, you can just target that and start launching a distributed denial of service and take everything offline or start causing problems, delays, etc. So with the smart grid, last year there was a presentation from a couple of Spanish guys. Basically, they could compromise smart meters that were being deployed in a city in Spain. So by compromising the smart meters, they were able to send commands to the smart grid and possible causing blackouts in big areas of the city. And this is right now, this is recent research showing how attacking the endpoints, in this case smart meter, could affect the smart grid of a city. Then for the public transportation information system, the attack will be like targeting the information that is being displayed in real time. So if you start showing fake information about arrivals, departures, delays, etc., people will change behavior, because if they are waiting for something, a train, a bus, and they are seeing that it's going to be delayed, they will take a decision, say, okay, I will return home, or I will go to work with in another way. It could take a cab, or it could take another line of bus or subway. And by changing behavior, it affects the whole system, because if one people change behavior, it's not a big deal. But if 100 or more people change behavior, then you have a big problem there. Then something really common right now are traffic cameras and also surveillance cameras. These devices have common vulnerabilities that could be exploited to cause denial of services. So when you have a denial of service on a surveillance or traffic camera, it's like you can make the city blind, because the cameras allow you to see in real time what is happening and where. But when you don't have that, it's like you become blind. And this camera, usually they are deployed by the hundreds, and you have the same model and the same brand. And when they are attacked, sometimes you don't have the possibility to remotely restart them. If they have some critical vulnerabilities, you could, as an attacker, could change the firmware. You can really compromise the camera. So you became blind, and you go from this, that you can see everything in a city. You can see what's happening and where. You can go from this to this. So you become completely blind. And this is really powerful for attackers, just blinding the people, the police, anyone. Another problem that was also researched by Kaspersky people last year, they found in a city, and probably could be affecting many cities, a camera system that were being used without any encryption. It was a surveillance system used by the police on that city, and it was using the proprietary protocol, wireless protocol, but there was no encryption there. So basically they bought the same camera and they reverse engineering the protocol, and they were able to access all the cameras in the cities. And this is recent for last year. Another thing is, like, right now with social media, you can really amplify attacks as an attacker. That, like it happened with the Sony breach, where it was an initial breach, and then the attacker started to play on social media, started to reveal more information, to give some leads. It could be real or not, but it kind of amplified the attacks because people start to notice more the attack, they start to get worried. So imagine that in a city that maybe an attacker can do some simple attack without much impact, but then the attacker can go in social media and start promoting that small attack and start promoting a bigger attack. That maybe that bigger attack is not real, but because he already did a small attack, people can start getting worried. And if people start getting worried, they will start getting angry with authority, with the government. And every day you have this problem, it gets bigger and bigger, and you have to find a way to deal with that. So social media and right now communication can be a really useful tool for attackers. So what are the threats and the attackers that can be targeting cities? So first we have nations. I mean, on cyber war scenarios, the thing you will target will be the technology from your adversary. And city technology will be a really interesting target for your adversary, because if you are in a conflict, then you will try to affect your adversary in different ways. And attacking city technology will be one very interesting for. Then as we already know, because all these spying activities and nation state malware that have been identified in the last couple of years, we know that the nation state has a lot of knowledge and skill to perform attacks. So in case they decide to attack cities, they already have the resources to do that. They just need to target a city and do it. Then with cyber terrorism, we are seeing that they are recruiting people with university degrees. They are just not recruiting random people. They are focusing on people that can bring skill to the terrorist organization, skills to perform the really bad actions. So we have people skilled that is showing in these groups. They could have computer skill, they could have information security skill that can use to launch attacks. And then we have cyber criminals, and you know, cyber criminals always look for the cost benefit when doing attacks, but they continually evolve. So for them it will be a good business to attack cities, they will start doing it because I mean they have resources, they have malware, they can develop their own resources, or they can rent it from someone else. Basically, it's just a matter of they decide, okay, some city systems or services could be a good business for us, so let's attack it. For instance, they could, the same way as you have a malware that will encrypt all your data and ask you for a ransom to give you the key so you can get back your data, they could do the same with city systems. They could do the same, for instance, with the smart grid. They could compromise maybe the smart grid, say, okay, you want your smart grid back, okay, pay us this amount of money in Bitcoin and we'll give you the smart grid back. This is like a movie scenario, but it's becoming possible because the technologies that are being used that are vulnerable. And finally, we have activist groups that we know that they have campaigns when they target from people, organizations, companies, government. It depends on what they decide. Sometimes they will say, okay, let's attack the people from starting tomorrow, and they will, all these people that think that that's fine, they will join the forces and start launching an attack. So it could be that sometime they will say, okay, let's attack this city because, I don't know, the city mayor, we don't like it, is a bad person, so let's attack this city, and they will recruit people in order to do it. And that could be possible. So for ending, there are some basic recommendations because, I mean, the problem is really, really bad. I mean, it's right now the situation is really bad. So any simple thing we can do to improve it will count. So these are very basic recommendations. One is that to not install and use devices or system without security testing. I think it's very important for governments when using systems and devices to run their infrastructure to first do some basic security tests, just checking if there is encryption and if the encryption is good, if there is authentication, authorization. I know this could be difficult because lack of resources, but I think this is a must. I mean, you must be sure that the systems are safe before using it. Then I think vendors should provide some really good support when they are selling services to the city, because when you find a vulnerability in a city system, you need to have a fix soon. But if the vendor doesn't have anything that can make them to provide a quick fix, they won't do it. I mean, I have seen that with the research I've done last year. The vendor took a year to release a fix that I don't really know if they did it because the fix wasn't public. But I saw that. I mean, it was 1 year that the system, the devices were left vulnerable without any security fix. So you should find a way to get vendor to fix things quickly. Because, I mean, if you don't fix quickly, then you will be open to attack. And that's not possible when thinking about city critical infrastructure. So another important thing is, I think cities should have some kind of city CERT that can handle all the incident, coordination, information sharing, etc. It's very important to have an organization that can coordinate effort inside a city, that can provide information, that can provide procedure. This is something I think right now all modern cities should have. As any company, because you are dependent on technology, you should regularly run pen tests in all the system and network that are used by the city. Also important to have some fail-safe and manual override, because I mean, if you implement some new technology and that technology doesn't work or have security problems, you have to think that maybe you will have to turn it off. And if that happens, you have to have someone in place to replace it or to be in use while that problem is being fixed. And respect with public data, like I said, I think it's good to share data, but I think it should be restricted and monitored in some way. For instance, request registration in order to access the data, track the use of the data, monitor how it's used, when, etc. And finally, prepare for the worst. I mean, if you are running a city, you have to think that it's possible to have cyber attacks on your infrastructure. So you should be aware or know that infrastructure and have protections in place. Identify all the weak points, identify all the threats, be prepared for that. So the final conclusion are that smart cities right now are wide open to attacks, not just smart cities, but cities in general that depends on some kind of technology. So the current attack surface is huge and is unprotected. I mean, there is a lot of vulnerabilities, and that's happening right now. So I think it's just a matter of time that we start seeing some attacks on city services and infrastructure. I really hope this doesn't happen, but I mean, the problem and the possibilities are there. It's just a matter of decision from attackers to do it or not. But the opportunity for them is there. Like I already said, it's very important to properly audit the technology before using it. I mean, if we don't do that, we continue having this problem over and over again, and the situation will get worse. So all this should be started to be doing right now, because if we don't start doing something right now, the situation will get worse every day. I mean, every day there is new technology being deployed, so the problem is growing every day. So we need to do something right now. And finally, when you have small cities that have a lot of security problems, that the data they use can be trusted, anyone can modify it, anyone can attack the system. So instead of having a smart city, you end up having doomed cities, damned cities. So thanks for joining today. So we have a few minutes for questions now, or you can join on Twitter and use that hashtag to ask questions. Or if you want to do the question in private, you can use that email address or my email address and send question, and we will answer as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Cesar. So if you have any questions, there is a questions section on the GoToWebinar control panel that you have on the side of your screen. Feel free to just put those in and we can answer them. Or as Cesar said, we can use Twitter and email to answer any questions you may also have. Well, it doesn't look like we're getting any questions in. Actually, we do have one in now. Cesar, this one's for you. What is the most effective single security control smart cities can implement today?
Well, if I can choose, I will try to, I mean, you need to know the technology you're using. I mean, you have to have a inventory of all the technology you're using, and you have to audit it. I mean, just basic audits like making sure if it is wireless, it is being encrypted, that it has authentication, authorization. The same with all technology. I mean, if you don't do really basic security audits, the same way you audit or you test the functionality, you should test the security, because it doesn't matter how many controls you have in place. If you are constantly deploying insecure technology, then those controls won't help much. So the first step is, for me, is trying to make sure that the technology you are going to use has some basic security functionality, like encryption, authentication, and authorization, and it is working right now. Because sometimes vendor would say, yeah, we have really strong encryption, really strong authentication, but then when you test it, it doesn't work, or it's really bad.
Okay, the next question we have is, how can we make wireless devices or sensors safer?
Well, for wireless communication, there are standards that they also implement strong encryption. What I see when vendors implement strong encryption, the problems are related with key management, because that's become an issue when you want to provide a very easy to use product. So it's difficult to deal with the keys, where and how you store them, where and how you share them. So there are challenges, but they can be solved. I mean, you need to provide a solution to deal with that. Some vendors that implement strong encryption always have problems with that. So basically, they will share the keys. So every device, we have the same key. So if the attacker can get one device, he can recover the key. Or sometimes they will share the key with the private key with the firmware. So if the attacker can get one device and can extract the firmware or can find the firmware online, then he can have the key. So one thing that should be done is vendors not implement their own encryption. They should use some standards, some non-good encryption, and try to make sure that they do properly the key management.
Okay, the Next question is, last week, the Department of Defense announced its strategy for dealing with cybersecurity and potential domestic threats. Cesar, so the first question is, did you see this? And the second question is, did it begin to address the issues you have raised in any meaningful way?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? The Department of what?
The Department of Defense announced its strategy for dealing with cybersecurity and potential domestic threats.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I didn't see the document in detail, but I mean, that's a really basic document, and mostly it's not dealing with this kind of thing. I think I haven't read the document in detail, but I think they are mostly targeting the organizations related with the military, with networks, but I don't think they are addressing these problems I already described. Again, I just took a really quick overview of the paper, but as far as I know, I don't think they are addressing these kind of issues.
Okay, the last question we've got in here at the moment is, won't it be very expensive if we have to create secondary manual systems as fallback in case automated systems are compromised?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the technology, but there are some system or some services, I guess you have to have a secondary solution, because I mean, if you are complete dependent of the technology, you can be in big problems if it doesn't work for something. I mean, it could be like a simple software bug, like I described earlier. It could be a cyber attack. It could be something else. But yeah, I guess it will be expensive. It will depend on the service. That's just a recommendation. I mean, it depends on the specific needs in a specific scenario, but it's something to think about, because there should be some backup system. There should be something that will allow you to recover from some problem, or I don't think it is easy, but I think it's possible. But I guess you have to find some way to do it and not become really expensive.
Okay, another question that's just come in is, have you ever been to a smart city like Portland or Songdo or Singapore and talked to the city managers about this?
I haven't been, I mean, I have been in different cities around the world, not on those specifically. And we are starting to have conversations with people from the government, from different areas, for instance, from the Department of Transportation, from people from some security department of some cities, and they are showing interest on this. But this is just beginning, and as far as I see, they don't have much resources, and they have a lot of different things to deal with. So budget and people resources are an issue, but there seems to be a worry about this. So I think it's interesting that we are starting to have conversations, and we are starting to do something about it. I didn't mention, but soon we will be launching a Secure and Smart City initiative, that the idea is to bring together vendors, researchers, government, and then starting to produce resources to address all these issues that I already mentioned. This is going to be launched very soon, in a couple of weeks. We are already working on that. And the idea is to have on board, like I said, different people, organization, government, and start working on this. So initially, yes, there is some initial conversation, and I think it's good, because people are realizing about this problem, and we want to do something about
it. We don't have any more questions for now, so I think we've come to an end. So Cesar, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will be having the webinar will be uploaded to YouTube within the next day or two. And we will also make sure that everyone gets a link to that. We will also share it on our social media channels. But for now, thank you everyone for joining us, and hopefully you'll join us at our next talk in a month's time. Many thanks.
Okay, thank you everyone. Goodbye.